Today's date is November 4th, 2014. This is a public hearing. This Lowell City Council Economic Development Subcommittee. In attendance, we have Susan LeMay, our Chief Tax Assessor, on hand, along with Maria Dickinson of Planning and Development. We have Jim Troop, Parking Director, along with Councilor Jim Milanazzo, Manager Kevin Murphy. Roll call, please. Here.
Councilor Kennedy.
Here.
Councilor Martin.
Here.
Councilor Rourke.
Here.
Four present.
Okay, first item on the agenda this evening is a discussion regarding personal property exemption. Motion by Councilor Kennedy, seconded by Councilor Belanger. Councilor Kennedy?
Thank you. Well, this was referred to the subcommittee and I think to the assessors as well for a report and recommendation. Do we have a report and recommendation beyond, do we have something like that? A report and recommendation from the assessors on whether or not this would be a good idea?
In order to get these companies into the city of Lowell. At this time, we don't know what the impact would be to the city because there are no R&D companies that have been certified by the Department of Revenue anywhere in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to date. There are about 3 communities in the Commonwealth that have adopted this, and obviously no one has given this exemption yet because of the fact that no one has been certified.
Okay. Well, one of the reasons that I brought the motion forward was in order that the city could remain competitive with those communities that have offered the exemption. And it was my understanding that although the exemption might be incentive for them, that the financial impact to the city would be small. Is that fair to say?
Oh, I definitely think it would be small. One of the things is it's only the R&D equipment itself that would be exempt. It wouldn't be the furniture it's just the R&D equipment, period.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess unless there's other comments, I would make the motion that we recommend adoption of this to the full city council. And so I'd put that out there as a motion.
Okay. Seconded by Councilor Martin. A comment first, Councilor Martin?
So we did receive a while back a report from Ms. Dickinson and Ms. LeMay in September. And I agree, you say it's difficult to predict what the impact would be, but you did say potentially $57,000. But there's one company that's probably going to be granted a manufacturing exemption anyway. So that would bring the impact down to maybe $35,000 or so. So I agree.
And if I could add that, they are actually in the process of looking at that manufacturing certification now.
Right. So, for $35,000 to establish ourselves as sort of a research and development center with the potential upside for even one company locating here. If it's enough to attract one company, I agree that this is a worthwhile endeavor for us to pursue. We have a good track record in the city, I think, of taking advantage of programs that the state makes available to us. Other parts of the state look to us as an example of how to get some of these economic development projects done. So I think we should follow through with that as we have in the past. So I agree with Councilor Kennedy's motion. I think it would be a wise thing for us to do, and I appreciate the work that went into the memo. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Martin. Councilor Rourke, no? Any of my colleagues, Jimmy? No? Okay. Well, I think this is a great motion. I think we've, to this point, I've already had one example of a company we landed recently up on Pawtucket Boulevard there, which I think this was the difference in landing them in the city. And to re-echo Councilor Kennedy's comments, it's fairly minimal. And I think the gain far outweighs the sacrifices the city's making to attract new businesses. And there's not too many of them doing it. You said 3 cities and towns throughout the Commonwealth, so that is a low number considering. So I think that'll hopefully give us a nice advantage. So I do support it. So Councilor Kennedy has a motion on the floor. Roll call, please, Mr. Clerk.
Councilor Belanger.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Rourke.
Yes.
4 yeas.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Susan, thank you very much. Maria, appreciate that very much. Okay, second item on the agenda this evening, discussion regarding potential parking ordinance changes. Take your time, Jimmy. We also have Assistant City Manager Mike McGovern on here tonight, and CFO Connor Baldwin on hand, but this was a motion made by myself to review the parking ordinances that are downtown, because talking to businesses and customers alike and residents is that, parking in the downtown is one of the biggest deterrents for people to come down, shop, and dine, and what have you. And we're trying to change that perception, because the word that I don't like to hear is problem. Parking is not a problem. We have ample parking in the downtown. We have, on weekend nights, probably 2 or 3 floors empty on all the garages in downtown. It's just that we got to get people in there to use them. So I had a meeting with Kevin Coughlin and Jim Troop. And Jim, could you kindly update the council on your response, and if you don't mind?
So, at our meeting, we discussed a couple of possibilities, things that we would like to explore. And listen, parking is always a political argument, and we know that. But I think that the key to making any changes or better enforcement or anything like that, I think that we need to have the data to prove that it works. Moving forward, actually, in review, I've already looked at and spoken to a couple of other parking directors in other municipalities, looked at some of their best practices, their ideas, and there are things that we can definitely explore. And we've talked specifically about enforcing up to the ordinance, maybe making some changes to the ordinance on Saturdays and things like that. And that's things that people may not necessarily want to hear. But I think that in terms of economic development, making parking available to people that are coming to downtown Lowell and to the businesses down here, I think that those are things that we really need to explore. But I also think that these are things that we really need to have an argument in place that supports making such changes.
I agree, Jimmy. Now, could you give us a few examples? What cities and towns did you go by, and what are they? What ideas maybe can we go off here?
Absolutely. As part of the New England Parking Council, we have access to a group of parking directors at other municipalities, and they've compiled a data list that shows not only rates but times of enforcement. Most cities and towns throughout Massachusetts enforce Monday through Saturday. Sunday is the only time that's free. Currently, our ordinance does allow for enforcement on Saturdays, but it's not anything that is currently practiced as a full-time process. There are other communities that also extend their time. Our ordinance reads till 6 o'clock. But there are other cities like Haverhill, Nashua, New Hampshire, Salem, Massachusetts, Somerville, Brookline, and others that actually extend that based on demand. People that are coming downtown to the establishments, to restaurants, to retail establishments, to anything, and they adjust their ordinances accordingly. And I think all this stuff really has to be on the table and to see if it's a right fit for Lowell.
Okay, I agree. And those are very similar comps, they're very similar cities. I think we have a parking ordinance now that works for the city. Jimmy, I think you're doing a great job, and the department runs on the black, and that's all good and well. But I don't think it works for businesses, in all honesty, from who I talk to and from what I see. I mean, I can go down Market Street on a Saturday afternoon, and knowing the people and the residents and the businesses can raffle off literally the owners of the cars. And they're all nice people, but it's not doing retailers and merchants very good, very much good, when there's ample parking in the garages once again. So any input from my colleagues? Councilor Rourke?
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Jim, with regards to what we have now, the ordinance in Lowell, was Saturday ever enforced?
In my time here, no, it wasn't. We would come in during special events, such as the Folk Festival, such as the City of Lights Parade, and kind of help with that. But in my time, there has been a historic argument, and it's been deterred. And I don't know where that argument comes from. And it's something that, I've been trying to put on the table for a couple of years because I think it would help. And when we did the parking study, a couple months ago, and I have some maps and some charts to prove, it showed that turnover in spaces went down when there was no enforcement. Yet we still have the ordinance that backs us up, that if we did enforce, I think you would see a significant increase in turnover in cars. You'd see them, and they'd be a little bit more in line with those 2-hour limits that we established in the downtown area.
In those cities that you did do studies on, did those cities have parking garages as well?
They do. Specifically, Salem has both garage and meters, and they have a tiered pricing structure that spaces that are premium to retail and restaurants and other establishments that are in demand, they charge higher for those. And then they would charge less for areas that are a little bit less in demand, maybe a little bit outside of the downtown footprint. So again, another thing that probably should be on the table when we do look at some potential changes as we move forward.
And were those prices in the garages in those cities, were those less than on-street parking downtown?
You know what, it's hard to say. I think that for the most part, if you look across the state, on-street pricing is way below what it should be. It's not reflective of what the actual, what it should be priced at. And again, if you go across the state, if you look at garage pricing is maybe a little bit higher than what it should be. So it's really coming up with the right mix based on the demand of each of the locations. I mean, really, parking is a commodity, and I mean, it does go up and down, but it really should be priced based on the demand that we have in each of the sections of the city.
Right. So with all the studies and your position as our parking director, if you had carte blanche, if you had a decision to make on our parking ordinance, what would it be?
Well, I think it's a mix of what we've talked about and what's on the table. I still think that there is probably some research and some people that we need to look at and see what their specific needs are. We have a ton of businesses that, no matter where they are in the city, they're going to have different demand. There's different parking that's available to them. I think that we really need to go out to the key stakeholders throughout the city and the different neighborhoods and the different economic regions of the city and decide what do they need, what are their parking needs, and how do we best accomplish that. And as an example, we'll look at how we priced Father Morissette with UMass Lowell. We did not follow the ordinance in that. We basically told them that we think that there is this value for these spaces, and they took it. There was a little bit of negotiation. And that was, I think, a key to moving forward and to be able to look at some of these ordinances and pricing and what have you, and properly pricing spaces throughout the city. So I think we still need to look at a couple different areas and the needs of the businesses in each of the areas moving forward.
And as far as residents downtown go, do they get a break on garage parking?
Right, they do. The prices are tiered based on whether they're residents, Chamber of Commerce, as well as just a regular rack rate that we charge, and those are defined in the ordinances.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you have an idea of what do we take in for parking revenue on an average Saturday?
Well, I actually have, and I've been charting since the beginning of the calendar year, I've been charting what we take in actually outside of the ordinance hours. On any particular, from Friday night at 4 o'clock when the enforcement shift, quote unquote, stops, till Sunday at midnight, we'll take in roughly $2,000, $3,000 for the entire weekend. On a Monday through Friday business day, we're looking at anywhere between $4,000 to $6,000, depending on the cyclical nature of our users.
So we're not doing that bad, are we? Even without the enforcement, we don't do that bad on a weekend then? Is that what you think?
I think that may be a fair assessment, but I also think that we leave an awful lot on the table. We did look at a number based on some calculations, and then the study that we did, that we may be leaving up over $250,000 on the table in terms of revenue, never mind the cost that it does to turnover in those spaces in the downtown area. So, I mean, there's a significant upside, and that doesn't talk about ticketing or anything like that.
How do you get to that 250,000? How does that, if it's 2,000 a weekend compared to, for 2 days on a weekend without any enforcement, and it's, say, 5 to 6 or 4 to 6, I think you said?
Sure.
For the other 5 days with enforcement, where's the 250,000 that you think we might be leaving on the table? Where does that?
I'll share with you my chart as soon as we're done, but for the sake of discussion, we took the revenue outside of the enforcement hours, Monday through Friday, and then on weekends, starting at 4 o'clock Monday through Friday to about midnight. That number projects to be about $184,000 for the calendar year. We also took a calculation based on the study that we did back in May, that when we add the revenue that we were out, cars that we noticed on the streets that did not pay for the meters, we were looking at another about $70,000. So the 180 plus the 70 works out to be 250. And again, we weren't looking at any calculations for metered tickets, enforcement, and then we also don't take into consideration cars that turn over, because they're just, unfortunately, there all day.
So it's just revenue, it's not fines or anything like that that you're
Right.
concerned?
I think that if we added fines in there, we might get up to a real scary number, and I think that it would really demand looking at this seriously and making some changes.
Maybe I'll understand better when I see the chart than I do right now, but that just seems like a lot of money to me. Several weeks ago, we had Jeff Speck at the Lowell Plan breakfast, and many of us were there, and one of the things that he suggested that we consider would be to zone the parking, or what you spoke about earlier, and so that it would be at a higher price in certain areas, and then places where there was low demand, the parking would be cheaper there. And is that what you would recommend as well?
Oh, I would definitely recommend it, and you could go throughout the city and see that there are plenty of open spaces in, varying neighborhoods. You're not going to see that in downtown, and part of the reason is that it's really cheap on-street parking for downtown. But if you go over to, before we struck the deal with UMass Lowell, if you went over to Father Morissette or in the Wanna-Lancet area, you see plenty of parking that's out there. If you even take the downtown footprint, you actually have some spaces on some of the side streets that people aren't exploring, but they're the same price. And I think that if you looked to see how you could affect turnover through pricing and enforcement in the downtown, you could actually find some blocks not too far from the downtown area that could maybe stay at the same price, and look at what the actual value is for the spaces in really the high demand zones.
Okay. One of the issues that we have in the city seems to be that there are a lot of residential units in the downtown area. With just about every single one of those residential units comes a garage space. And I think that the perception is that a lot of people who live downtown who have a garage space, if the weather is good, then what they'll do is park on the street on Friday and maybe leave their car there all weekend without fear of getting a parking ticket, because they know that there is no enforcement on the weekend. So really, they're kind of tying up two spots, I guess, in a way. But the point would be that they are taking up a lot of spaces on the street that would go to patrons of retailers, and that space would be available if they parked where they were supposed to, which is in the garage. One of the possible solutions to that would be to ban overnight parking in the city, in the downtown, not throughout the city, but just in the downtown area. So that if we were to say that nobody is allowed to park downtown from, let's say 3 a.m. to 6 a.m., those 3 hours, then that would make all of those people that are parking on the street go back into the garage, because they would be concerned that their car would be towed when they get out there in the morning. What do you think about that? I know that Brookline, for instance, and you mentioned Brookline, they do not allow overnight parking. I think Nashua, New Hampshire, doesn't allow overnight parking. Is that something that makes sense to you? And if it doesn't, what would be the what's wrong with it?
Yeah, no, I think that makes an awful lot of sense. I mean, these people, they do have spaces in the garage, and unfortunately, it's more convenient with no penalty for them to park on the street. And I think that the benefit to that is they're in the garage, and they may not necessarily be moving over the course of the weekend. We found that out, again, back in May when we put the boots on the street and looked at the parking and the turnover. They were the same cars that were there all day. And that's indicative of it either being residents or employees. It's not somebody that is frequenting any of the downtown establishments. Really, the goal of what we want to try to do is, if I'm coming to downtown Lowell and I want to go to any one of those establishments, I want a space. There only has to be one space within the block of that establishment. If we can get the number of cars that we witnessed that actually have garage spaces into the garages, you're opening that up tremendously. If you're eliminating the overnight parking, you're, again, opening that up tremendously and probably making some things pretty easy for deliveries and allowing a little flexibility for downtown. I think there's a tremendous benefit to exploring something like that, but I also think that it's probably one piece to the puzzle.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I just have two other little issues that I would like to bring up. Since we've gone to two-way on Market Street in particular, what I've been told is that it can take a real long time to get out of that garage now, that there's a gridlock, and maybe the street light at the corner of Palmer and even the street light down at Central maybe exasperates the whole situation. But I've heard stories that cars are queued up and waiting to get out of that garage for 30 to 45 to even 60 minutes. And I haven't been down there to witness it firsthand, but you know, it's a pretty good source. Have you heard about that, and what can we do to take care of that problem?
Yeah, it's actually very discouraging to hear that. What I'm going to make an assumption, and this is based on my own observations, is that 30 to 45 minutes might also include the time that it takes to get from the garage to Central Street. Now, yesterday, as a test, I went into the garage during the peak exit. And what I noticed was that, unfortunately, the way that the plan that the two-way called for is one lane enters that intersection. And if traffic is queued up from Central Street down Market Street and people want to take a right, there's no way for anybody to maybe swing around and go down Palmer Street to Merrimack. There's no way for people to take a left. What I'm hoping, and this happened up on Middlesex Street, when they did the paving and striping, that actually eliminated a lot of the problems. So I'm hoping that now that the paving is done and the striping is soon to follow, it eliminates some of the problems. I've already met with a number of people to discuss other alternatives because I know that this is frustrating. It's embarrassing for us trying to run the parking garage, and it definitely deserves attention. So,
well, it's a reason not to use the parking garage, isn't it? If it's going to take you that long to get out of there at the end of the day, that's a reason to try to find an alternative rather than to go into the Market Street garage.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it's not a deterrent, but like I said, unfortunately, the way that it is right now, we do need to address it, and we are taking the steps to look at some alternatives.
Okay, I guess I think that when the garage was built, Market Street was one way, and the design for entering and exiting the garage was based on that, and that maybe when we made it two-way, maybe we need a redesign of how you get in and out of that garage. Is that?
Yeah, we toyed around with a lot of different designs, and unfortunately, none of them worked just because of the way that structure was. It was extremely costly, and the consultant thought that the way that we did it now with one lane being reversible was the solution. Like I said, we've talked with a number of people, and we want to solve this. And we have to look and see, once this paving and striping is done, I hope that solves a lot of the problems, and then everything else is minor. I mean, as an aside, I do have to say that when I exited and I saw the traffic queued up over to Central Street, I went down Palmer Street and I took a right on Merrimack, and I know that I got out of the downtown area faster than if I stayed on. And I think that's part of the intent of going two ways, is that it gives people more options to get out of downtown. And I experienced that yesterday.
Okay, and then the final thing that I wanted to touch upon was the safety and security within the garages. Can Could you explain exactly do we have private security, and do we have cameras in every garage? And how does that work? And has there been a high incidence of crime or anything like that in any of the garages? And do you track that, or is that something that the police department does, or?
No, we track that, and the number of incidents, the last time we did the report and then moving forward, shows that we do not have a crime violence issue in the garages. If we look at a couple of the incidents that happened last week, there was a robbery in the garage. We can't deny that. And the next morning, the police were in the garage. They took video and they were able to identify. They have a clear shot of the suspect. I haven't followed up on that to see where that's gone, but we were very helpful and actually received some commendation for assisting in the investigation. The other incident that happened up towards Middlesex Street happened outside of the garage, and security actually assisted the victim and brought them into the garage to call the police and kind of cleared everything up and calmed the victim down. But I actually have to say that the security has been very proactive. They have provided extra security. They've provided undercover security. They have upped their details. Again, they have been very proactive and have been pretty spot on when it comes to the security in the garages. We have a lighting project that's going to be going on at the Market Street garage that's going to improve lighting. And then there are other measures in place, again, that we could hopefully explore to make them safer and more attractive.
Okay. Do we have video surveillance on every floor of every garage?
We have cameras in the common areas of the lobbies of the elevators, the entrances, and what have you. But extensive video, no.
In other words, if you go into the garage and you look down, and all the cars are parked, there's no video surveillance there. Is that correct? It's just where you get in and out of the garage.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And if, as a follow-up, and that's kind of a dangerous, confession to make, but on the aside, our video surveillance at all the entrances and exit points is very good and has been very helpful if there were ever any incidents in the garages to help identify any potential suspects.
Okay. And do we have security 24 hours a day in every garage?
24/7 we have at all of the garages with the exception of the AOT garage. The AOT garage does not warrant the 24/7 security.
Okay, and what does that amount to? Is it one person, or?
It varies. We will staff accordingly based on the demand of a special event, and the demand of the garages. We utilize the undercover as well as extra details.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Kennedy. Some excellent points. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been working in the downtown now more than 20 years, and have had a lot of opportunity to observe what's been going on. And I think if you drive from one part of the downtown to another, I think that the daily turnover during the week at least is pretty good, or at least it's as good as it's been in the times that I've observed, what we're trying to do. But I know businesses usually they want their spot right out front, mostly for their customer, but also for themselves oftentimes. Somebody who owns the unit upstairs wants to be able to use that same spot to unload their groceries or something like that, which I think is different than staying there for, overnight for 2 days. And I think, everybody's got an investment here. Certainly I think we've tried to encourage residential development in the downtown. Those residences are customers for those businesses. So the parties need to coexist as peacefully as we can, and I think we need to make that happen. So I was intrigued with your comment about, if we took this to the next step, that there'd be a significant sort of outreach effort. And I wonder what you thought sort of a next step would be, and what you had in mind as far as trying to communicate with the various interest groups, business organizations, condo associations, or how do you, what are your thoughts on that?
Sure. I think that there's probably a multifaceted approach to something like that. And again, I'm going to refer back to what I said to Councilor Rourke about reaching out to the stakeholders and finding out what their demand is. I think that from the parking department's perspective, we don't have to talk about revenue. Take that off the table. If we can improve the turnover in the downtown and make more spots available through our enforcement, and we don't even have to have tickets. Let's see what the effect of just having the meter enforcement officers out there and patrolling the area, trying to get people to park in the right spots, trying to park legally, trying to direct them to the garage, act more in a customer service manner. I think that if we can employ all of these things to promote better turnover outside of how we're enforcing right now, I think that the springboard effect for the businesses is there'll be more spaces available in front of their businesses. We'll get the employees as well as the business owners in the garages. Maybe we have to explore an incentive for them to get there, whether it's a discount. I think all of this stuff should be on the table, but the bottom line and the end result and how I see it going is there are more spaces available for the people to come to downtown Lowell.
Okay. I agree with your approach for the most part. I do, to follow up on Councilor Kennedy's point, I think it'd be good to say that we have surveillance in all the entrances and exits and common areas, and then selected spots elsewhere, so people, might know that. But last night, for example, I was downtown, maybe 8 o'clock until, I don't know, whenever the football game got over. But the game was still around 10:30 maybe. I parked in the early garage. I was gonna pay, because I said, geez, I know we don't enforce, but maybe we enforce in here. But then the machine doesn't take bills, so I took a chance. And I didn't get a ticket. But I had a very positive experience, and that wasn't the only reason. I mean, the lighting was fantastic. I mean, compared to the lighting on the street, the lighting in the garage was exponentially better. I was happy the way my car looked in the light, actually. It was pretty good. So, but people are going to use these garages. We need to assure them that they're safe, and they are safe. In my experience, for 20 years, I've been paying for employees to use those garages, and it's mostly women that work for us, not exclusively, but more women than men, and they don't feel unsafe in the garages. At least I don't get those complaints from my staff. Now, they leave relatively early, but in the winter it's dark. It's dark, and I think any sort of lighting improvement project will only help matters. So I'm actually glad to hear that, because I think it needs to be bright, especially late at night. You have dinner, it goes a little late. There are some clubs downtown, that market themselves to not being open until late. If you're leaving there late at night, you want it to be bright. And I think, all those things, all those improvements, I think, are worthy of discussion and consideration. But I think we need to keep people informed as we go through this. And one last point I wanted to make, it's about the revenue, because in my view, I know you give a fine, you collect a fee, and people think the city is making gobs of money on parking revenue. But we set up the parking enterprise fund so that the parking would pay for itself, and really just that, and that was the whole concept of the early garage, that the fees we collect from the other garages pay the bond on the early garage. And so that was an expansion of some 900 spaces. And so I think I'm not necessarily looking for more revenue. We want it to be revenue neutral. We unfortunately need to charge some revenue, charge some fees, so that the operation pays for itself. It'd be nice if we could fully subsidize that, but the city's not in a position to do that. Maybe someday, but not for a long, long time anyway. So, I think people should, I speak for myself, but I think most of my colleagues on the city council feel the same way, is that we are not looking to generate more revenue from parking. We are looking for ways to maximize the effectiveness of the parking we have. so that it works for the businesses, it works for the residents, and, you know, everybody prospers, hopefully. And we try, you know, we're here as a facilitator of that, and the more you can do to bring people along and sort of build that constituency will help do that. But I think, you know, that, I think, is at least a charge from me.
Very good, Councilor Martin. Appreciate that. Councilor Leahy, you have any comments?
Thank you. I just wanted, I got here, got here a little bit late, but I did want to make a comment that last week I was over at the AOT garage, and I thought that the staff over there, they do an excellent job. They know the students, they know the cars. So I was very surprised when I was over there and I met a couple of guys. I was happened to pick up a car from my daughter, and, you know, the knowledge of the students really surprised me. So that was a good thing. I think they're doing a great job there. And as far as the other garages, I haven't had a problem with them either. I think that they seem to be well lit and well managed. I'm happy that you have the 24/7 security. Could you just elaborate on the AOT again? I suppose you have security there during the day and at events, but it's not utilized as much at night, maybe, with...
Correct. The AOT garage is staffed based on demand, so they will increase the patrol, they will increase their security staff as well as the garage staff based on the events. The normal Monday through Friday general business, you know, it doesn't warrant an overnight security. That doesn't mean that there's not security there. There's a GPO that's staffed that includes that as part of a regular round, and they will increase the patrol at that garage because there isn't a staffed attendant. But they do routinely patrol that garage overnight. It's just not manned.
All right, great. All right, so I just want to make those comments. I thought, you know, I was very pleasantly surprised. And Sunday I used the garage, the early garage, and, you know, clean, plenty of people around, so I thought that was great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Leahy. Manager Murphy, do you have any comments?
Just want to follow up on Councilor Kennedy relative to the tie-up at the Market Street garage. I've received a couple of complaints. I think one of the problems there is when you exit the garage and take the right down Market Street, when you approach Central Street, there's no right turn on red there. So it really queues up the traffic all the way up Market Street. So I've already, I'm going to be meeting with the police department to come up with a plan to maybe alleviate that queuing up because of no right turn on red at Central and Market Street.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I think that would be very helpful. It's a very good idea. Any other comments from my colleagues before I open it up to the public? Oh, Councilor Rourke?
Thank you, Mr. President. Jim, so a couple of months back, there's an opening for a traffic or a, you know, a ticket person. I think it was Tuesday to Saturday. And was it Monday through Friday was 10 to 6. Has that spot been filled?
Yes, that spot has been filled. And again, I think that precipitated some of the council motions to look at the parking ordinance. So we're ready to staff that shift to extend the enforcement, should that be the wish of the council.
So what's stopping us now from, you know, on Monday to just enforce it the way it's written now?
You know what? That's a question that I have too. If we wanted to start enforcing it tomorrow till 6 o'clock, you know, it would just mean adjusting a schedule accordingly. But I think that we may want to address whatever the historic argument was against being here till 4 o'clock or on the weekends. And I think that if we can roll that out and inform people accordingly, I think that it would be far more effective than just going out and starting to do that.
Because the current ordinance we have now includes Saturdays, correct?
No, that was originally on the table, but that would have been extremely drastic given, again, the historic argument against that type of enforcement.
Okay, so the ordinance we have currently is just Monday through Friday then?
Oh, the ordinance we have now, I'm sorry. Yeah, it is Monday through Saturday, 8 to 6.
Okay, but as far as you know, it has never been enforced.
It has not been enforced since I've been here.
Okay, so I guess my question again would be, why don't we just start doing it the way it's written?
I'm fully on board with that. I'm fully on board with that, but I think that we probably need to address and understand what maybe the historic argument against that was. When it was brought up, there was some significant deterrent to increasing that.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Rook. Mr. Manager, do you have any other comments?
Well, that's been the policy since I was here, and I think there might have been established by, it was established by the prior administration. I don't know any involvement of the council, but, I mean, if the council was so inclined to think that that was a good policy decision, we could start enforcing it according to the ordinances, start doing it tomorrow.
Well, I think that's the idea, is why we're here. I think we need to, the kiosks read, as you stated, Mr. Troop, Monday to Saturday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., but we've been misrepresenting ourselves. But that's no fault of yours, previous administration or previous council. That's the way it's always been. But just to go out and start tomorrow, I think is unfair to residents and businesses as well. All of a sudden, if they start ticketing, there would be an uproar. There's no two ways about it. I can tell you firsthand. But let's do this a systematic approach, step by step, to engage all the shareholders. I think is the best way to go about this, rather than just going out tomorrow or the next day and doing it. I'm only one vote here, but I think, knowing my fellow merchants downtown, there would be some backlash by just going out without proper notice, quite frankly. Councilor Kennedy?
Mr. Chairman, I guess before I would be ready to vote on something like that, I would want to take a better look at the chart that you have, that you'll be giving us afterwards, because it seems to me that if we're already collecting that kind of revenue for Saturday and Sunday, it doesn't seem that bad to me, without doing any enforcement. And maybe a closer look would make me change my mind, but that's just off the cuff with the numbers that you gave. It just doesn't seem to be all that bad. So I guess I think before I would be ready to vote, I'd want to take a good look at that chart and maybe any other information that you have regarding the revenue.
Councilor Lay, do you have a few comments? Another comment?
Sure, thank you. I just have one other comment through you to Mr. Troop. How are we doing with the school department moving downtown? So they're about 70% moved downtown. Years ago, I know that we had spots, I think, in the AOC garage for them. So while we've been up on Highland Street, we probably haven't been paying, we used to pay for parking at the school department. So how's that working out? Are we encouraging them to use the garage so we're not getting all these new employees to park on the street? And then probably in about a month or so, we're going to have the Parent Information Center opening up. That's going to add, so we working with the school department to get them into the garages and direct the parents and everything.
Right. In terms of specifics, I don't want to misspeak, but it was part of the bid that whoever bid for the office space for the school department had to provide parking. And I believe that was taken out of the equation, and the parking department offered the number of spaces that were required through or at the Downs garage and the Leo Roy garage. We gave them the option. And we gave them the option because both garages are advantageous to their current location, and we also had to really consider who our current customers are Monday through Friday. So it's worked out very well, and not speaking for the school department, they seem to be very happy with the offer that we made.
Good. Thank you.
Councilor Leahy. Councilor Rook, another comment?
Yeah, thanks, Chairperson. So I guess going back to what we do enforce now, we've been here for almost an hour talking about this. If no action is taken, people are going to park there on Fridays, leave it there until Monday. So, I'm all for enforcing it as soon as we can. Maybe, we give the administration 2, 3, 4 weeks to get the word out, to talk to the businesses and to the residents downtown, to tell them that, pick a date, December 1st or something, we're going to start, I guess, enforcing the ordinance as it's written. I mean, if we're not going to do anything, we might as well just make the ordinance 8 to 4 Monday through Friday. I'm not sure what a chart is going to do or not going to do, but I think the whole point is to, as Councilor Martin said, be the facilitator between the businesses, the residents, and the administration for the city. So, you know, I'm curious if any ideas that could be done by the manager's office to get the word out, you know, through the police department, to get the word out that starting on a certain time and date, you know, we're going to do it 8 to 6, Monday through Saturday. You know, I think it's a bonus. You know, the sooner we get it done, it's going to be better for the city and for the downtown business area. So, you know, it's just my thought on it. You know, give the administration time to, and yourself, to get the word out, to tell them that, you know, we're just going to enforce the ordinance as it's been written for, you know, you've been here for how many years? You know, Jim, hasn't been enforced that way. So, you know, just a thought on that. So, thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you, Councilor Rook. Very good. Councilor Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A lot of good is coming out of this subcommittee meeting this evening relative to parking. I agree that the ordinance as written should be enforced 8 to 6. I think that, and Saturdays, I think that we should give the administration enough time to get the word out. So I would actually support waiting till after the holiday season, because we're actually offering some free parking in some of the weekends in the downtown. But I can tell you, when I do come downtown on Saturdays and go to different establishments, and I have to drive around and then eventually maybe end up in a parking garage, which is fine. But when I get in there, I end up getting complaints from the business owner saying, "Do you see that car right there? It's been there for 10 hours. They live upstairs, it's been there for 10 hours. So again, I think if we get the word out and make sure that the stakeholders who are involved in this change are heard, are listened to, and so forth, and give them time to adapt to those types of changes. But I would, again, support having the administration do the due diligence, but come the first of the year, actually enforce the ordinance as written.
Very good, Councilor Milonazo. It's very good compromise. Councilor Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess if the goal is to free up parking spaces, if that's our goal, is to free up parking spaces on a Saturday, if we can do that by banning overnight parking, then that seems like an easier way to solve the situation. However, I do recognize that it could be that we could ban overnight parking, and maybe that doesn't solve the situation. In other words, maybe people who live downtown would still park in the space and be willing to, you know, to go out in the evening and move the car then. I'm not so sure. But I think that regardless, I certainly, for one, would be interested in seeing what the financial impact was going to be, or the projection of what the financial impact would be, if we do start enforcement on Saturday. Because, again, the amount of money that you described that we take in on Saturday and Sunday by doing nothing at all is not way out of line with what we're doing during the week, it seems to me. But again, maybe if I take a closer look at your chart, maybe I will think differently. I guess I think that if we're going to wait till after the holidays to do anything about this, then there's plenty of time to gather more information, and that's really all I'm asking for. I mean, I can understand, and I think I join with everybody else in wanting to free up parking spaces downtown. It's just how are we going to go about it, I guess, is what's in question.
Yes, very good, Councilor. And Jim, Mr. Troop here, we get state-of-the-art data that he can get pretty much any data we're looking for without going out for a study. He can research what other cities and towns are doing, what days and certain hours we're taking in the revenue. I think we can get all our answers right here without going out paying for any additional studies. So, Councilor Rook, another comment?
My last one. If you could look into the overnight ban, you know, I think as a side effect, just for our DPW and our snow removal contractors, I think that's a huge plus for them. You know, Mr. Manager, I have noticed the mornings, you know, I see the workers, you know, cleaning up the streets of downtown, and, you know, I come in 6:45, 7 a.m., and, you know, and they're busting tail to get the downtown cleaned up, which I think is very commendable. So, you know, again, I think, you know, number one, getting those cars out of there into the garages, and then number two, to having that time period of the night where the streets are totally clear. It was much easier to, you know, clear snow, number one, and then keep the downtown clean. And, you know, that goes, you know, part and parcel with being a good neighbor, being a good counsel towards our downtown businesses. So, you know, any looking further into that, that'd be terrific.
If I may respond, note that I wasn't the one that first said snow. I just want that to be known.
No, yeah.
But just as an aside, we do offer free parking when the snow emergencies are declared at the early garage and at the AOT garage. And if that gets people off the streets as well, we're all for that. I just want to make sure people are aware that they can come to either of those garages during snow emergencies.
No, very good. Excellent point by Councilor Rourke. There would be a dual benefit in that overnight parking ban with cleanliness and snow removal could really be kept up, because last year was not such a good year. Granted, the snowfall was beyond, we were unable to keep up with it, but there would be a nice benefit there, as Councilor Rourke stated. So, any of my colleagues have any other comments before I open it up to the public? Before I do, I would like to welcome Councilor Mercia, who's on here now, Councilor Samaras, and Councilor Leahy as well. So anybody from the public like to chime in, businesses or residents here this evening like to chime in? Andy, step on up.
Hello, good evening. Andy Jacobson, Brewed Awakening Coffee House on Market Street. A couple of things from this discussion over the past 45 minutes. In regards with the Market Central Street, I think some of the paving, as we were talking right before, at the end of Central Street, getting the lines in there is going to help, but I do believe a lot of it has to do with the no turn on red, ability to turn on Central, especially because the same time, for most of the time when you're turning on, when you want to turn right on Central and that you have that green light, it's the same time that people can cross the street. They have the go signal to go, and so cars now can't go on green because they're waiting for the pedestrians to cross. So having that ability to be able to turn right on red in many of the new areas, I think, is going to help alleviate and move traffic a little bit quicker. So on that front. Then on just parking in general, I think it's a good conversation. I think it's definitely needed, definitely heading in some sort of direction, it seems like. You know, I think the goal is to really make the downtown accessible for patrons throughout the day and the evening. And as well as, you know, make it accessible for residents when they need to drop things off and pick up and unload and load. So there has to be some balance. I do think we need to get the help of the LDNA on board and sort of have them work with the residents and sort of get an idea. But some of the ideas that I liked, particularly, one is the 2:30 to whatever that magic time is, be it 5:30, be it 6, be it 5, of off-street parking, allowing for the street cleaners, because I know those guys do have a little bit of trouble every now and then when, you know, when I'm putting my tables and chairs out at 5:30 and 6 o'clock in the morning, or when pedestrians are there. So it does help clear that a little bit. It will help make it easier for snow removal come winter. So I think that's good, because immediately now in the early mornings, you're probably going to have a lot of the residents off the street. There is that downside that, you know, if you keep it as is, they could leave and then come back and move their car and stay there through until Monday morning, or unless we're enforcing it Saturday night into Sunday as well, which I'm not sure if Sunday's the magic free day. So I think we need to just make sure, you know, look at that, but I do like that idea as a big deterrent to get cars off immediately. The other idea is I'd like to try to maybe be a little different in regards with the Saturdays and the enforcing of the ordinance if possible. I think just going out and starting to enforce and ticketing for no meters, you know, it's going to have a lot, I think it could have a lot of backfire, especially from people that are familiar with the downtown. People that are new to the downtown and just coming in for the day, they're putting money into the meters because I'm seeing people do that all the time. If we're revenue neutral on parking meters, and we're not really looking to raise money, if there's the option of maybe not enforcing the meters, but enforcing the 2-hour time limit and maybe updating signs to say that. I don't know if it's used anymore, but the old chalking the tires and seeing if they're moving within 2 hours. I think that way, ticket those that have been in the spots for longer than 2 hours, but we're not ticketing people for just not putting money in the meter, and mainly really doing this on the weekends. And that way, we're rotating cars and turning over cars in those parking spots, but we're not really making it seem like we're really revenue happy as a city in regards to metering and ticketing people for meters on the weekend. So those are my 2 comments.
Thank you very much, Andy, because I know you're right down the street from me. I know you see what I see all too often on the weekends, but it's difficult on a Saturday to not be ticket happy if we meter maid goes to a meter and it's not paid, how can they tell when they got there? Or, so if they chalk tires and they're still there 2 hours later, they're gonna have to ticket them. So I think the only way to do it is just to fully enforce on Saturday, just like we do Monday to Friday. I think we need it. I think we need it desperately down there, to create that turnover. But some very good input nonetheless. Anybody else like to chime in?
I am Jack Moynihan, 88 Prescott Street, and I am also the co-chair of the Lowell Downtown Neighborhood Association. And I think everything that's been discussed this evening has been very positive, and we as residents are very supportive of the local downtown business. We consider them our neighbors. I just want to make one comment. I agree with Andy about the if possible, trying to enforce the 2-hour limit rather than going over the meters. I think it would send. I mean, maybe it wouldn't be feasible. It might be difficult to do that, but I think it would. It would just send a better message, because it's not that we don't in any way want to discourage people from driving and parking. We just don't want to have people extending and parking for long periods of time. And getting back to the idea of the overnight parking, I'm fine with that too. I think you might have to have a combination of the overnight and the daytime parking extension for all the hours. That's just my thought. But anyway, it's all very positive, and the LDNA is supportive of these proposals. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. And the LDNA will be kept in tune as we go about. You can rest assured of that in businesses as well. There's not going to be an ordinance slipped in overnight without unbeknownst to residents and businesses. So I can rest you assured of that. But we can look into that. Jim, do you see what Jack is trying? I see what he's trying to accomplish there. I mean, let's look into it and see if it's not feasible. Then, but everything's on the table here, and we have to look into everybody's input here. So I think it's. Thank you for having your understanding too, Jack, being a downtown resident as well. I appreciate that. Anybody else like to chime in on the public? Okay, that portion of the hearing is now closed. Any of my colleagues like to finish in comments? Councilor Martin?
Just that I appreciate the comments from the members of the public, Mr. Moynihan, Mr. Jacobson. I think it's interesting that the resident and the business owner came to the same approach, that maybe we want to look at the 2-hour limit and perhaps the overnight. It might be a good first step. So we certainly will take that to heart. I appreciate your time and making the effort to come down. So thank you.
Very good, Councilor Martin. Anybody else wish to finish up with some comments?
Hey, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Kennedy?
So I guess, how are we going to leave this? I mean, should we be expecting a report soon should the subcommittee be expecting a report soon from the parking department, or and should we be meeting in December once we have more information, or what are we going to do?
Yes, very good. Well, obviously, Councilor Kennedy, that's very good, and we need to obviously get the stakeholders together. Businesses, I don't know if we can have a meeting early December, some night, somewhere. I mean, I know nights seem to work well with the Managers Downtown Summit. That was very well attended at the high school. This pertains to all businesses. We need to get the word out and get them on the table. This pertains to all of them. We all have, we're all stakeholders here, residents and businesses alike. So maybe set up a hearing there, some sort as well, to gather all the stakeholders, and at the same time, what Councilor Kennedy also mentioned, maybe a report to the subcommittee of all the concerns met here today, the potential ordinance changes and your data that can maybe back it up or contradict what we've looked at today at the same time. So we can go into this more informed, and because we got a ways to go here, nonetheless. But I think that today was a very, very positive discussion by all my colleagues. So, Councilor Mercia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This truly was a very informative meeting. Mr. Troop, thank you very much for being here. We also have to say that through your motion, Mr. Chairman, by Councilor Belanger, we are going to have free weekend parking November 28th and the 29th, December 19th, and the 20th in the downtown. We need to inform the public of that. That will bring in people and business to the businesses for their shopping for Christmas. We also need to probably put that on the website, these dates here, so that people going on the website will know that we got to get this word out somehow.
Very good, Council Mercy. It is, that's what it's intended to do, to get more people downtown. And the first weekend is the City of Lights Parade, which is a very successful weekend in the downtown. It's one of the merchants' best weekends all year, quite frankly, is that long Thanksgiving weekend. So this, I believe, will enhance it, and all the council was in agreement. So we have Kevin Coughlin on hand tonight. I'm sure he got the message. I will meet with him once again, along with Henry Marchand, to communicate to businesses that this is what the city is trying to do here. And please, feel free to use it on their social media. Please come down, free parking on this certain weekend. I know I'm going to, and we all need to capitalize on such great things that we're trying to accomplish here. But
Maybe they can put it on their sandwich signs.
yes, on the sandwich boards as well, Councilor Mercia, yes. But a couple of things that we haven't talked about, Jim Troop, is also that we've talked about, the premium parking on Market Street. Market Street and Middle and Central should be more than Lee and Page Street. I think we were talking about that earlier. But what about the possibility of discounting garages on weekend nights too? See what a first hour free say on a Friday and Saturday night. I think that may have a positive impact for retail. See what impact that may have as well in your data. But don't forget, as they come down and dine and shop, we're getting, 0.75% on food and beverage. May not entirely make up for all of this, but it's a little something that helps offset. As well as we had talked about advertising. We have all new state-of-the-art kiosks. Maybe we can put advertising panels on top and advertising boards on entrances and exits of garages where businesses may want to advertise there to create extra revenue to help offset anything we may lose. We don't know yet. We're doing this for the sake of businesses, not revenue. I think has to be put aside. But if this is done properly and systematically, I think in the end that revenue could go up with the enforcement on Saturdays, and we'll have the turnover for businesses at the same time, as well as additional revenue for advertising or whatnot. I think it could be mutually beneficial, but it's way early. It's just speculation. But so nonetheless, some great dialogue here tonight by residents and businesses and my colleagues. So anybody else like to comment before I close the hearing? Councilor Rourke?
I think Councilman Mazzo's idea of starting the ordinance enforcement on January 1 after the holidays, and that gives the administration basically 2 months to get the word out to both residents and businesses. So, I'd make that motion to ask the administration to start getting that word out and maybe, enforce the ordinance starting on January 1st.
Yes, I think that would be a good time. It's such a sound date. January 1, 20 would be, and everybody's would stick, so to speak. But I think it's enough time to get all the stakeholders together. We'll work with planning and development. We have Maria Dickinson here, and they do such a great job in organizing businesses. So, Councilor, I think that is achievable by all means. So we'll work on that right away. The manager is here. And Jim, you and I will meet by the end of the week with Kevin Coughlin again and have a little follow-up. We've heard the demands of the council and the public, and we'll begin immediately. And I think it is achievable by January 1. I really do. Any other comments before I close the hearing?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, how long will it take you to generate a report like that? I mean, we're asking for quite a bit of information, but I suppose a lot of it is right at your disposal anyways, right?
You know what, I think one of the keys that we have with these kiosks we have an infinite amount of information that's available to us to generate any report. And again, I think that if we listen to the stakeholders and we're able to back up anything that proves that this is something that we should be doing, we can generate it and we can show that it'll work.
So you should be able to do a report in, say, 3 or 4 weeks. That should be adequate time.
However the parameters are dictated, what you'd like, we can provide that information. We have the historic data in the garages and as well as the kiosks.
Okay. Can I just ask one other question, just out of curiosity? Is it possible to set the kiosks so that on one day, for instance, on Saturday, would you be able to have it be that they would only accept 2 hours worth of money on Saturday and then have them be regular for the rest of the week? Is it possible to do that, or does they have to be reset all the time?
Again, I think that those kiosks pose a tremendous opportunity to everything that we've discussed here. What I'd have to ask is how long it would take to write the software for that type of a change. But yes, we do that right now with the event parking. We push that out there for the particular events. There's no reason why we can't push out a rate like we do for anything else, snow emergencies or what have you.
So is your answer, no, we can't do that right now, but if we had the software, then we could do it?
That's a question that I would have to ask, and I could give you a set time for when we could start that.
Okay.
Yes, I have to ask that to find out how long it would take to write the software
Okay.
to push to the meters.
Fair enough, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Kent. But to follow up, they're 2-hour maximums anyway. Even if you swipe a card, it'll take out $2 for 2 hours, right?
Correct, but as the wheels are spinning a little bit when I hear some of this stuff, and how do we satisfy the requests of the residents? How do we satisfy the requests of the businesses? And I'm not going to be the one that goes out and shocks tires, and we do have a mechanism to electronically do it. The kiosk, again, gives us a fantastic tool to just do that for us, and it also lets the person who's going there, they can plug in their space number, and they know exactly when their 2 hours would be up.
Okay, very good. Okay, any comments this evening? Council Martin?
So I support the notion of some sort of, I guess, enhanced enforcement activity starting the first of the year, but I don't know if we know what that's going to be yet. Is that going to be this 2-hour thing? And I think we should listen to what the people told us tonight. And I think, especially when they both agree, supposedly competing sides said what they think would work well for both groups. So I think we really need to seriously consider that and how we can do it. And I think we should give some thought to the overnight issue too, which could require an ordinance change. So, and I don't think we the conclusion of this meeting should be there's going to be an army of meter maids, on New Year's Day, and there's a new sheriff in town. I think it's complete opposite of that. We're going to try and come up with something that's going to work better. There will be enhanced enforcement, and it's going to need to be to get there. And so I support the notion of a January 1st target date, but I think we need to hear back from you as to, can we do it by then, or maybe we could do certain things by then, but not others. So just let us know as soon as you can.
No, very good, Councilor Martin is right. Data from him will be very important to the subcommittee, as well as we'll try and, I think what a good target date I'm thinking to get the retailers and residents together would be after Thanksgiving, that first week in December type. I think would be a good week. It's a little quiet before Christmas, and after Thanksgiving might be the perfect time. So I'll work with Planning and Development, Jim, yourself, to organize that meeting during that week and get all the stakeholders together so the council can get their input as well to answer Councilor Martin's concerns. Okay, any other comments? Motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second by Councilor Martin. Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it.